Does the law of the sea control you? Myth or reality? Have you ever wondered why? From the moment you were born, you have to live by rules you never chose? Birth certificates, licenses, contracts, all these make you a part of the system. Yet no one ever told you the truth. The scariest part? They don't need your consent to control your life. Stay tuned, because understanding these secrets could help you reclaim the freedom you deserve. Two laws that govern us without us realizing it are the law of the land and the law of the sea. These rules, though operating silently, significantly influence how we live, work, and exist in society. What's unique is that they exert control not through overt power but through hidden structures embedded in everyday life. The law of the land is the most familiar legal framework we recognize. These are regulations related to life on land, like traffic laws, tax laws, or civil laws in your country of residence. Each nation and culture has its own system of land laws, but they all aim to regulate human behavior, maintain social order, and protect community rights. Above this system, however, is another lesser-known law, the law of the sea. This set of rules doesn't just govern activities on the oceans, it profoundly impacts the global economy. It was developed to manage maritime trade, especially during the European colonial expansion. Over time, it has been applied on land, forming the foundation of the legal and financial systems we live under today. A clear example is how birth certificates are used. When a child is born, the birth certificate is not just a record of life but also creates a separate legal entity. This entity, often referred to as the strawman in legal systems, exists as a kind of asset with value in commercial transactions. Your name on your birth certificate, driver's license, or government documents is often written in uppercase letters. This is no coincidence. It's how the law of the sea identifies you as a legal entity, distinct from your living self. Imagine you're not just an individual but also a property owned by the system. For instance, when you step into a courtroom, you're not treated as a living person. Instead, you represent the legal entity created through your birth certificate. This is why when you answer or sign any legal document, you unwittingly accept the system's authority over you. Historically, the law of the sea evolved to control international trade. In the 17th century, as European nations like England, France, and Spain expanded their maritime commerce, they needed a system of rules to ensure the safe transport of goods and protect merchants' interests. These legal principles were later brought onto land through the development of banking and financial systems. An intriguing example is how maritime law influences financial language. Terms like cash flow, liquid assets, and drowning in debt all evoke imagery of water and the sea. Language not only serves as a communication tool but also as a way for the system to obscure its control. Even if you don't live near the sea, your life is still influenced by the law of the sea. For example, modern banking systems, from opening accounts to borrowing money, operate on principles derived from this law. A loan isn't just borrowing money, it's a legal contract binding you for years. Each installment you pay is a way for the system to continue controlling you. Much like how cargo ships are bound by commercial contracts when docking. To illustrate further, consider how courtrooms are designed. The place where you stand to address the court is called the dock, a term originating from ship docks, where cargo is inspected and traded. The judge's elevated position resembles that of a ship's captain. Even the gold-fringed flag often seen in court symbolizes maritime law. These small details are evidence of how this power structure has been meticulously designed to maintain control. George Orwell's famous quote, "Power is not only what you see but also what you don't see," aptly describes how the law of the sea operates. We live in a system where every aspect of our identity and finances is governed by rules we never agreed to. The unsettling truth is that this system only works as long as we don't realize it and fail to question it. Reflect on this simple reality: you don't need to verbally consent for this system to control you. As long as you participate, open a bank account, sign a loan agreement, or step into a courtroom, you implicitly accept its rules. This is similar to how a ship entering a port must abide by the host country's laws, regardless of where it came from. Understanding these two laws not only reveals how they operate but also empowers you to live more freely. As the philosopher Socrates once said, "An unexamined life is not worth living." Awareness is the key to breaking free from this invisible control. Implicit consent in the legal system is a sophisticated mechanism that few recognize. Yet it holds immense power in maintaining the system's authority. It doesn't require your explicit declaration of agreement, your mere participation in societal, financial, or legal activities suffices as tacit acknowledgement of the system's rules. Consider a simple example: when you step into a courtroom, you don't appear there as a living individual but as a representative of the legal entity created by your birth certificate. The system doesn't regard you as your real self but as a strawman, a separate legal entity. Every time you respond to a judge, sign a document, or even just attend a hearing, you unwittingly accept the system's authority over this entity. This principle applies to other areas of life as well. Opening a bank account, signing a loan agreement, or even applying for a driver's license means you've entered the system without knowing you've agreed to it. This lack of awareness is a critical element that keeps the system running smoothly. As the philosopher Jean-Jacques Rousseau famously said, "Man is born free, but everywhere he is in chains." These chains are the implicit agreements you didn't even realize you made. A vivid example is how your name is used on legal documents like your birth certificate, driver's license, or government-issued ID. Your name is typically written in uppercase letters. This is not a coincidence. In the legal system, uppercase letters signify the legal entity, not you, a living person. This distinction allows the system to treat you as an asset rather than an individual. For example, James, a man burdened by overwhelming debt, discovered that the loans he signed not only bound him financially but also legally. Upon researching the system's workings, he learned about the existence of the strawman. By understanding this, James changed how he approached court and bank dealings. Instead of automatically complying, he started questioning and challenging contract terms. As a result, James reduced his debt and achieved financial freedom he never thought possible. Implicit consent is one of the most powerful tools the system uses to maintain control. By making you participate willingly, the system doesn't need to exert force. Instead, it operates through your lack of knowledge and unconscious acceptance. George Orwell's insight, "Power is not what you see but what you don't see," captures the essence of implicit consent. It exists silently but governs every aspect of our lives. Currency is the lifeblood of the economy, and the way we talk about money reveals how it operates. One of the most fascinating aspects is how the financial system uses water metaphors to describe the flow of money and its control. Terms like cash flow, liquid assets, and drowning in debt aren't just figurative expressions, they paint an accurate picture of how money functions. Imagine the flow of a river. It's directed by riverbanks. Much like how banks and governments regulate the flow of money within the financial system. If the water flows too quickly, it causes flooding, similar to financial collapse when money is issued or invested recklessly. Conversely, if water doesn't flow, the river dries up, resembling an economy in recession due to a lack of circulating capital. A historical example is the 2008 financial crisis. The global financial system resembled a sinking ship. Major banks, often referred to as motherships, were drowning in bad debts from uncollectible mortgages. To salvage the situation, governments executed bailouts, a term derived from the act of bailing water out of a sinking ship to keep it afloat. Language is not merely a descriptive tool but also a mechanism by which the system operates. For example, did you know that the word bank originates from river bank? Just as riverbanks guide the flow of water, banks regulate the flow of money. Assets are called liquid because they can easily circulate. Just as water takes the shape of its container, When companies go bankrupt, we say they sink. When someone can't repay debts, they are drowning in debt. Even terms like dirty money and money laundering reflect how the financial system works. Dirty money is laundered akin to filtering water to remove impurities, creating a clean, legitimate stream of funds. This illustrates a system where money, like water, can change its state and value depending on how it's processed. The story of Alex, a young investor, illustrates how financial language shapes perception. When Alex started his investment journey, he was overwhelmed by complex terms like cash flow, liquid assets, and financial leverage. However, through research, he realized these terms were merely a way for the system to obscure its simplicity. Money flows like water, moving toward those who control it. This understanding extends to the financial system's design. Consider how wealth and resources are funneled into a concentrated few hands. Just as rivers flow to the ocean, money flows into the control of powerful institutions. This systemic design ensures that, whether through implicit consent or linguistic manipulation, the majority remain unaware of their own participation in perpetuating the system. Ultimately, recognizing these hidden structures, whether in the legal system or financial frameworks, empowers individuals to question, challenge, and, most importantly, regain control over their lives. As Orwell wisely noted, the power that operates unseen is the power that governs us most effectively. By uncovering these truths, we take the first steps toward true freedom. As Leonardo da Vinci once said, observe the flow of water, for within it lies all the answers. The flow of money and water not only share similarities in their movement but also in how they are controlled. Those who hold power are the ones who can direct them at will. By understanding this metaphorical language, you will realize that the financial system is not an incomprehensible mechanism. It resembles an ocean, where all of us are like small boats. You can either let the currents carry you away or learn to steer your vessel. The crucial point is to recognize that, like water, money can be controlled, and if you're not the one steering, someone else will be. The legal and financial systems operate through contracts and licenses, tools that seem harmless but are effective means of controlling every aspect of our lives. From driving, getting married, opening a bank account, or even borrowing money, all require you to engage in agreements designed by the system. Each signature you make is not only consent but an acknowledgement of the authority imposed by the terms set by others. A clear example is a driver's license. When you obtain a license, you are not just permitted to drive but also agree to adhere to all traffic regulations, taxes, and associated responsibilities. More importantly, by holding this license, you unknowingly concede that the government has the authority to control your ability to drive, a skill that is inherently a natural right of individuals. Another example is a bank loan agreement. When you sign a loan contract, you not only commit to repaying principal and interest but also bind yourself to complex terms that you may not have thoroughly read. A man named Richard in the US once shared that when taking out a mortgage, he focused only on the monthly payment without realizing the contract contained clauses allowing the bank to foreclose on his home for even a minor late payment. He later discovered these terms were not transparently explained and existed solely to protect the bank, not him. A business license is another example of how the system limits our freedoms. Want to open a small cafe? First, you need a series of licenses from the local authorities. These licenses not only require fees but also tie you to regulations regarding taxes, hygiene, and periodic inspections. While these regulations appear to serve the public interest, they are actually a means for the authorities to maintain control and extract revenue from every business activity. Notably, contracts and licenses are not merely legal requirements but also tools for the financial system to extract profit from individuals. For example, when you purchase insurance, you think you are paying to protect yourself against risks. In reality, you are entering into a complex contract with terms skewed in favor of the insurance company. In disputes, you often find yourself at a disadvantage because the contract was drafted to ensure the company's interests are prioritized. Consider a marriage license. Another form of contract many people overlook. When you register a marriage, you create a legal agreement among three parties: you, your spouse, and the state. This allows the government to intervene in your relationship in cases of disputes, such as property division or child custody during divorce. These powers exist not for your benefit but because the system is designed to control and profit from personal relationships. Sarah's story, a young entrepreneur, illustrates how the system operates. Starting a small store, she soon realized that to run her business legally, she needed numerous licenses, business licenses, sales permits, and even advertising permits. Each license came with regulations and fees. As her store grew, the tax requirements and inspections increased. Sarah recognized that the system not only profited from her efforts but also bound her to rules that made it difficult to expand or pivot her business model. The troubling part is that we often don't fully understand the contracts we sign. Most legal documents are written in complex language that only lawyers can comprehend. This is not accidental, it is designed to make us sign without questioning. A study in the UK found that over 70% of people do not read the full terms when signing contracts, providing the system with an opportunity to maintain control. As Henry David Thoreau once said, man becomes the slave of the tools he creates. Contracts and licenses are those tools. We think we control them, but in reality, they control us. From a simple signature on a loan agreement to accepting a license, we bind ourselves to obligations that sometimes take a lifetime to escape. The system of contracts and licenses operates not to protect our freedoms but to limit them. Every license you obtain, every contract you sign, is a step for the system to narrow individual liberty and increase its own power. The key is to understand what you are participating in. Ask questions, and refuse if you feel it's unfair. Only by understanding the mechanisms behind contracts and licenses can you begin to reclaim control over your life. The symbols and structures we see every day are not random. They contain deeper meanings, serving as tools for the system to maintain control without suspicion. From courts, banks, to public buildings, all are designed to reflect a hidden order of power, reminiscent of maritime law and commercial authority. Take the courtroom. For instance, when you enter, you notice the unusual arrangement: the judge sits higher than everyone else, symbolizing supreme authority. The place where you stand is called the dock, derived from a ship dock, where cargo is inspected. Even the flag in the courtroom, often bordered with gold fringe, is not incidental. The gold fringe symbolizes admiralty law, emphasizing that you are under the jurisdiction of a commercial system. Banks are no different. Their designs often resemble robust, fortified structures, akin to fortresses guarding wealth. But inside, they operate like commercial ships, navigating the flow of money in the most system-beneficial way. Even the term bank originates from river bank, signifying the role of controlling monetary flows, just as riverbanks direct water flow. A fascinating example is how financial language employs water-related imagery. Assets are called liquid because they move easily. When a company goes bankrupt, it sinks. If you can't pay debts, you're drowning or underwater. These terms are not mere metaphors but reveal how the financial system is built on the principles of maritime law. Symbols aren't confined to government or financial institutions but are present in daily life. Look at public buildings, from parliament houses to Supreme Courts. Many are designed with architecture reminiscent of ships or ancient symbols of power. High steps, grand pillars, all convey messages of stability and unshakable authority. As Joseph Campbell once said, symbols are the language of the unconscious. These symbols are not just expressions of power but also influence how we perceive and accept the system. When you enter a courtroom or bank, you don't just see an institution but a part of a power structure designed to command your compliance. The secret lies in this: Once you understand the true meaning of these symbols, you are no longer controlled by them. You will start asking questions. Why does a court need a gold fringe on its flag? Why are banks likened to riverbanks? The answer lies in the understanding that everything is designed to maintain control without being questioned. When you see these symbols, remember they are not random. They are markers of a system that has existed for centuries, hidden beneath the familiar. Understanding this is the first step toward escaping the invisible control the system imposes on us. Admiralty law, also known as maritime law, originated from the need to regulate commerce and trade on the oceans during the European colonial expansion. From the 17th century, as nations like England, France, and Spain began exploiting sea routes for transporting goods and resources, the establishment of a unified legal system to govern these activities became essential. Admiralty law was created not only to resolve disputes between ship captains, owners, and merchants but also to ensure imperial power over the seas. One of the fundamental principles of admiralty law is the concept of ownership and responsibility. When a ship leaves port, it not only carries cargo but also represents the economic interests of an entire nation. To protect these interests, admiralty law requires all ships to be registered, monitored, and strictly comply with its terms. Each ship is considered a mini-nation, with the captain acting as its ruler, fully responsible for the ship and its cargo. Interestingly, the principles of admiralty law are not confined to the oceans. As European nations expanded their colonies, they brought this legal system with them and applied it to land management. Commercial courts were established based on admiralty law principles, which gradually infiltrated national legal systems. These principles became the foundation of modern legal frameworks, particularly in areas related to finance, commerce, and property rights. A notable example of this influence is how colonial countries like the United States inherited and applied admiralty law to their legal systems. After gaining independence, the U.S. retained many elements of admiralty law in its legal structure. This explains why U.S. courts still use some maritime-related symbols and terms, such as the gold-fringed flag or the term dock to describe the place where the accused stands in court. The influence of admiralty law extends beyond legal systems to the organization of banks and financial institutions. In their early days, banks were established to support international trade and operated similarly to facilities managing ship cargo. An example is the concept of trust, used to manage the assets and goods of shipowners in their absence. Today, trusts are a critical part of financial and legal systems, highlighting the profound influence of admiralty law. Modern legal and financial language also reflects this influence. Terms such as transfer of assets, transactions, and loans originate from maritime trade. Even signing a contract today carries the spirit of maritime commerce agreements, where every transaction had to be meticulously documented to avoid disputes. A historical example is how Britain used admiralty law to maintain control over trade during the colonial era. They established commercial courts worldwide, from India to Africa, to ensure all trade transactions adhered to their rules. These courts not only resolved disputes but also served as tools to expand the British Empire's power. But the impact of admiralty law is not limited to controlling commerce. It also influences how governments manage populations. For example, birth certificates, documents most of us consider a modern necessity, are essentially a form of commercial contract. When a child is born, their birth certificate is used to create a legal entity, similar to how a ship is registered to become part of the trade system. This system continues to operate without our awareness. From taking bank loans, paying taxes, to participating in the legal system, everything stems from the fundamental principles of admiralty law. We, acting as ships, are managed, monitored, and even valued based on our economic potential. Consider this: when a company goes bankrupt, its assets are seized, a term derived from holding goods on ships when the owner couldn't pay debts. Similarly, when you default on a loan, the bank has the right to seize your assets. These principles are not random but are a continuation of a system that has existed for centuries. As Winston Churchill once said, history is written by the victors. Admiralty law, with its development and widespread influence, is a testament to how power is maintained across eras. Principles designed to control commerce on the oceans have now deeply permeated all aspects of society, shaping how we live and work. We may no longer live on ships like our ancestors, but the legal and financial systems they left behind still operate as underlying currents, governing our lives daily. Only by understanding the historical roots and the spread of Admiralty law can we become more aware of our roles within this system. Awareness is the first step to breaking free from the invisible control imposed by this system. When you understand that every aspect of life, from birth certificates, contracts, to finances, is based on rules you never agreed to, you will realize that you have the power to choose. Change does not come from dismantling the system but from understanding and leveraging its rules to reclaim your freedom. Focus on a fundamental aspect: money. Money is not just a tool for exchange but also a means for the system to control and shape your value. But currency only has value when you believe in it. This echoes philosopher Alan Watts' statement, money is an illusion, and you are the one who gives it power. When you change your perspective on money, you will realize that its true value lies not in numbers but in what you do with it. A thought-provoking story is that of Lisa, a woman once overwhelmed by debt. After years of exhausting work to pay off her debts without finding relief, she decided to change her approach. Lisa began researching the financial system, understanding loan terms, and renegotiating her debts. From there, she gradually freed herself from financial pressure and built a freer life. Lisa's awareness was the key to breaking free from the cycle imposed by the system. But change is not just individual, it is about building an informed community. When you share what you've learned with others, you not only help yourself but also help them understand how the system operates. Remember, all significant changes begin with small actions. Mahatma Gandhi once said, "Be the change you wish to see in the world." That change starts with being more conscious of your role within the system. This system exists because of our implicit consent but also depends on ignorance. When you become more aware of the rules and regulations, you can refuse to play by the system's terms. This does not mean rebelling but using those very rules to reclaim control. For example, instead of signing a contract you don't understand, carefully read every clause. Instead of blindly following every regulation, seek to understand the reasoning behind them. Ultimately, the most significant change is in mindset. When you stop accepting everything as a given, you begin to break free from control. Focus on self-development. Connect with your community, and build true value. This not only brings you freedom but also weakens the system's control, as it thrives on uncritical compliance. As the famous saying goes, those who do not understand the system will forever be slaves to it. You can choose to live a bound life or choose to become aware, act, and change. True power lies in your hands. Our lives are not as straightforward as we think. From birth, we are surrounded by systems we rarely notice, from land laws to maritime laws. But awareness is the first step to escaping this invisible vortex. Remember, the control of your life lies in your hands. All it takes is asking questions and seeking answers. If you found this video insightful or thought-provoking, don't forget to leave a comment below. Do you believe what we've shared is true or just a conspiracy theory? Share your thoughts. And if you agree that more people need to know this truth, hit the like button, share the video, and subscribe to the channel to never miss important content. Let's uncover more truths together, because knowledge is power.